What is up, everybody? Welcome. Welcome to episode 3 of the Unprofessional College Football Show. I'm Terry, or T. If you had never been here before, if you had never watched the show, it's exactly what I said. It's me talking about college football. I've been watching football since I was a little kid. And I love talking college football. I can do it 365 days a year, even in the off season. I can talk about it, and I can watch anything. I have just as much fun on a Thursday night watching MAC as I do on Saturday, watching the big time games. I just love football. So, let's look back first. Let's look back at the last couple of weeks and let's take a look at some of the stuff that's went on and kind of see how it matches up to some of the stuff we've talked about. So if we look back, let's start off with Alabama first of all, as I typically do. We're going to start with Alabama. So a couple of weeks ago, Alabama went down to South Florida. They started Tyler Buckner. Milroe did not play. I've heard everything from he was suspended to lots of different reasons. And I don't really know what happened. But the team looked awful with Tyler Buckner at quarterback. One of the reasons they looked awful is because they were running the Bryce Young offense. None of the quarterbacks on Alabama's roster need to be running the Bryce Young offense right now. What we saw this past week from Ole Miss was a lot more like what we need to see as far as a game plan wise. I thought Tommy Rees did a great job coming up with the game plan for this game, especially in the second half. It looked like we made a lot of adjustments, and in the second half they were dominant. Looked kind of like the old Alabama teams that were ground and pound. So like I said, they went to South Florida, looked awful. What didn't look awful was the defense. Okay, that's one thing you got to keep in mind. Bama's defense this year is bordering on elite. Bordering. They're not there yet. They're very good right now. But I would not say they're elite or anything yet. But they are very good. And the good thing about having a defense like that is it can carry you, and you can win. You can win about every game you play if you have an awesome defense. Because if you're holding teams to 17, 14, maybe say a high-powered offense 21, 24, which is about the least amount you can hold a high-powered offense to nowadays without a lot of help, at least turnovers or something. So yeah, like I said, Bama looking good. The Ole Miss game, I think, was another. Let me tell you about what I think about Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss was, I won't say overrated because I don't like overrated that much, as you'll find out. I don't tend to think teams are overrated. For the most part, unless I rated them somewhere and I'm wrong. And now if that happens, they were overrated by me. I rated them better. But I tend to not do that to other people. So, Ole Miss, I don't know what it is, I'll be honest with you. I think Lane Kiffin, he's a great offensive mind. But I think he wants to beat Saban too bad. And I think he actually, I don't know if he's overthinking it or what he's doing, but he just cannot seem to get his team going on offense when they play Alabama. So Bama wins by 2 scores. I had predicted a 10-point win from Alabama, so we were good there. So let's see if it continues, though. One thing for sure, we're going to have to see more of the same type of offense for Alabama to be successful the rest of this year. what you saw, especially in the second half. The offensive line blocked a lot better. And when you have a good offensive line, you can have a really good offense because you can run and throw when you have a good line. That's where it all starts. That's where they improved, and then you saw they were dominant. Georgia, I'll be honest with you. I watched Georgia. They're good. I haven't predicted to make the playoffs. So, I think they're a really good team. I do have them losing a game in the regular season. They've not been dominant like they've been. Their defense is still good, very good, but I don't think their defense is as dominant as it has been the last 2 years. And their offense is definitely not as good. But luckily, they don't have to be as good as the last couple of years. They just have to be better than everybody on their schedule and better on whoever they play in the playoffs. So I think Georgia's fine. They've had not one, they played every game at home, and two, they've only played one conference game. So you really don't know. I mean, beating UAB, who's 1-3, beating them by 28. I mean, yeah, that's great, but you still don't know. Just like I've talked about the last few weeks, you don't know about these teams until they play somebody. And that's the reason these first few weeks are just so difficult to get a gauge on teams. Michigan's looked good the last 2 weeks. They've just cruised along. Michigan is my national title pick from the preseason. I'm liking, everybody thought Rutgers would really give them a game. Some people were predicting a possible upset, 31-7, Michigan. They've been able to run the ball. The defense is playing well. They're getting great quarterback play, which has been really the difference of why they've been so dominant. So still feeling good about my Michigan pick. Let's see. We won't get into that yet. Let's take a look here. Texas, they've looked good since beating Alabama. They've struggled a little bit. They kind of had a hangover against Wyoming. And then, they stomped Baylor this week. I watched that game. I don't think Baylor's very good. I know they're 1-3. So, I'm not exactly going out on a limb, but I do watch these games. I don't just look at box scores and compare scores. I watch the games. And Baylor just doesn't, they don't look good. I've always been a big Dave Aranda fan, but they don't got it this year. Okay, one of my other playoff picks is Florida State from the preseason. They did struggle beating Clemson. Clemson's not a bad, Clemson's still a good football team. Yeah, they may be 0-2 in the ACC, but Duke is very good. Florida State is very good. So, Clemson could win out the rest of the year. They could. I'm not predicting they will. I think they'll drop another game, but Florida State they've looked good. They haven't taken advantage necessarily in the games in certain spots that's kind of kept the game closer. And in spots they just haven't played as well. Against LSU, they played great. As you can tell now with LSU looking as good as they have, and they got drubbed by Florida State in opening week. So, still feeling good about my Florida State pick too. So, got to keep it up. USC continues to score like crazy. Their offense is awesome. I think they got the best offense in the country. Either them, Washington, or Oregon. From what I've seen, I think they have the most explosive offenses. And USC's defense is better. I'm not going to say they're good, or anything, but they are better. They're not good. I don't think they're good enough to win a national title or anything, but I think they're good enough to beat everybody on their schedule on defense. Whereas last few years, I wouldn't say that, you know. Um, and then Arizona State, when USC played them, they didn't look great, but you're not going to be dominant all the time. Ohio State and Notre Dame. We'll go ahead and talk about both of them. I felt like Ohio State was a better team overall than Notre Dame was. I predicted them to beat them, even though it was at South Bend. I really felt like Ohio State was going to win the game. And I think it boils down to Ohio State is a better team overall. Notre Dame has the better quarterback, for sure. Man, Sam Hartman is awesome. He is so good. So they have the advantage at quarterback, but I think Ohio State had the advantage most other places. Not to say, I mean, either team could have won that game. That's the thing about a game that's 3 points. When a game's that close, you can't say that the team that lost still isn't if you think Ohio State is a great team, you have to concede Notre Dame must be pretty good if it took all we had to beat them. So it's also respecting your opponent. But I do think Ohio State, as of right now, I got them the third best team in the Big Ten behind Michigan and Penn State. That could change. I started out the year, I thought Ohio State would be second and Penn State would be third, but I've kind of flip-flopped that after watching the teams. But, man, those top three teams in the Big Ten are good. Very good. Okay, Penn State. I'm still liking me some Penn State. Last week, Aller didn't have a great game. Didn't play great against Iowa, but they did plenty enough to get the job done. What I like about Penn State is they can run, they can throw, they can play defense. They have good receivers. They have a good coaching staff. I mean, I like Penn State. I think Penn State could make the playoffs. I didn't say that at the start of the year, but right now they could make the playoffs, I think. It might still. Okay, Washington, man, I got to give my brother credit. He's got Washington in the playoffs, or that was his preseason prediction, was to have Washington in, and they have looked so good. Man, Penix has looked awesome. But it's not just that. They're running the ball too. The defense is playing pretty well. And man, they're going to be hard to stop. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. They could easily make the playoffs. Okay, Oregon, Colorado. So I predicted in the preseason, if you happen to watch that show, you would remember that I thought Colorado was going to be better. And I thought that, I didn't think they would beat TCU, but after watching them beat TCU, I thought they could be 3-0 going to Colorado. I mean, going to Oregon. Sorry. But I also said, I mean, they're gonna be good until they go play Oregon, because Oregon's way better than anybody they've played. I think Colorado has a really good coaching staff. I think if they stay a few years, they're going to make Colorado very good. They'll be a playoff team within another year or two if they keep building, if he stays and builds like he has. It's just not this year. I mean, I think they're going to win about 6 games. I said in the preseason 5 or 6. And they're better than I thought they would be. But, I mean, you got to have a roster when you're talking about competing with the best of the best. and not a roster 1 through 22. I think roster Colorado's 1 through 22 is pretty good, but it's the 23 through 85 that really makes the difference, especially when you get into the season. Early in the season, everybody's healthy. You've had all off season to prepare for a team, so it's different. You get into the season, you start to test your depth, and that's where you see the teams with the better depth start coming out on top. Utah, still undefeated. Hope to see Cam Rising back. They really need him because the offense is not very good without him. It's okay. But they really need Cam Rising back. I like Utah. I'm telling you, the Pac-12 is good. I think they're the best conference this year. Just from everything I've seen, I think the Big Ten is very top-heavy. Now, I'm not saying that nobody else is good, but you got 3 really good teams, then a bunch of pretty goods, and then bad. SEC, I think, is going to be top-heavy. Maybe top-heavy or maybe no-heavy. SEC may not. They're not as good as they've been. I'll put it that way. And that mainly comes from, I believe, quarterback play inside the league. When you look, and this going into the year, I thought, this is going to be a rough year for the SEC because they don't got hardly any quarterbacks coming back. Well, if you see, a lot of the teams haven't been as good as were expected. Quarterbacks make a difference. LSU has looked really good. Looked really good a couple of weeks ago, I believe, against Mississippi State. They looked great. Daniels didn't hardly miss a pass. And then the past week against Arkansas, the defense didn't play great. Although Arkansas is a good team. I think they're a better team than a lot of people say. Arkansas struggles on the line, which is weird with Sam Pittman because Pittman's an offensive line guy. You would think he would have a great offensive line, but he don't. And that's really where that game was lost, was on the line, which about every game's lost on the line. But a lot of times if lines are even, it comes down to quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, coaching. My thing is, though, there's so many nuances to the game of football. I'm not one that would typically look at a game and be like, well, they have the better quarterback, they're going to win, type of thing. Now, I have looked at a game and been like, okay, everything about these teams is even except the quarterback. So the team with the better quarterback will win. But normally, I don't think about games like that. Very rarely. So, but LSU has been playing well. I had actually, told some people after, I said on here, I'm like, LSU's going to be fine. I'm like, LSU did not play well against Florida State, and Florida State's a really good team. Thus, me having them in the playoffs. So, but we'll talk more about LSU in a minute. Washington State has really surprised me big time. Even not just that they're 4-0. I watched them and they look like a Power 5 team. I mean, they look very good. They have a really good quarterback, Ward. Very good. 400-something yards passing, 4 touchdowns against Oregon State. That's getting it done, people. Oklahoma starting to come back down to earth a little bit. They struggled with Cincinnati. I don't necessarily know if Cincinnati's good or bad yet, so don't know what to make out of that. North Carolina's still undefeated after taking care of Pitt. Still like North Carolina because I like Drake May. Once again, when you have a good quarterback, you can beat anybody. When you have not a good quarterback, you can lose to anybody. Duke stomped UConn. That don't really tell you anything, but I can tell you Duke is good. Miami rolling along. They put the whooping on Temple this past week. Miami's 4-0. have looked really good. Tennessee got back on track this week by beating UTSA. But I know last week, this is a place I was wrong. If you ever want to see somebody admit they're wrong, watch this show, because I will do it a lot. I'll tell you when I'm right, but I'll tell you when I'm wrong. I thought Tennessee would beat Florida by double figures. No. So I thought Tennessee had been sandbagging a little and they were holding stuff back. Apparently not. I had also thought that Florida was not very good after the opening week. And I broke my own rule. I always tell people, don't pay too much attention to the first week or 2, 3 of the season. Don't make, final judgments about teams. What did I do? I saw Florida look bad against Utah, and then I saw Tennessee not look good. And instead of looking at looking with my eyes and saying, no, Florida's actually pretty good. And Tennessee, they're struggling to throw the deep ball. That's what I saw. But I still wanted to go with my preseason prediction, I think. And I couldn't get it out. Then, of course, Florida comes back and barely beats Charlotte 22-7 this week. After all the good I talked about them. But I think that's the type of team you're going to see Florida be this year. I don't think you're going to see them putting up many 40 and 50 point performances. But also, I think Florida's a lot like Alabama in that they're not going to score a ton, but they're not going to allow much at all. So if you can do that, you can beat anybody, including Georgia. Okay, let's see. Let's take a look at what we got coming up. And of course, I'm doing it as we're podcasting, which is very unprofessional, just living up to my name. All right, this coming week, we got Utah at Oregon State on Friday night, which is going to be an awesome Friday night game. I'll probably watch the replay when I get home. Oregon State's a 3-point favorite. I wouldn't touch that. I don't have a pick in that game because I still haven't found out for sure or haven't looked to see if Cam Rising is going to be playing. So if Cam Rising was playing, I would pick Utah to win outright. But not knowing that 3-point line, Oregon State at home, I'd probably still lean Utah covering and probably winning outright. But I definitely would if Rising was playing. Penn State's playing Northwestern. They'll kill them. USC's playing Colorado. As I was talking earlier, I can't believe the line's only 21.5. And it is at Colorado. I'm not sure how much of a home field advantage Colorado's really going to have. But I think Colorado will score points, about 20-24 maybe. But I think USC breaks 50. So, Florida, Kentucky, this one I went back and forth and back and forth. One time I wanted to pick Florida. One time I wanted to pick Kentucky. Then I thought, and I'm like, well, maybe I was right the first time. This is one of those games where a lot of everything is even. And I'm going with a team that's at home and the team with a better quarterback. No offense, Graham Mertz. I actually like Graham Mertz as a college quarterback. But Devin Leary is going to be an NFL quarterback. Should be, unless he just implodes. So I'm going with the team with the better quarterback. Kentucky's a 1-point favorite. So pretty much a toss-up. If this game was at Florida, Florida would probably be favored by a couple. But, yeah, I'm going to go with Kentucky with absolutely no confidence whatsoever. Georgia's going to play Auburn this week. Auburn's offense is a dumpster fire. It is awful. I can't believe Georgia's only 14.5-point favorite. Of course, I say that. Auburn will probably cover. I'm predicting Georgia to river stomp Auburn. Like 24, 27, 30, something like that. More than 14.5. I could be wrong, though. Michigan is going to kill Nebraska. Kansas and Texas. I'm not. No, I'm not going to do it. I can't pick the upset, but the line is Texas minus 16 and a half. I think Kansas comes in way under that number. Kansas is good, like really good. I don't think they're as good as Texas, but I don't think they're almost 17 points worse than Texas either. So, might get a backdoor cover out of this. I don't know, by Texas. I could see that happening, but I'm predicting Kansas to cover. Missouri's playing Vandy. They'll cover that 14, I think. LSU and Ole Miss. Boy, this one I probably wouldn't touch if I was gambling, because you got LSU, who's been playing pretty good, going to Ole Miss, and Ole Miss coming off of the Bama game. I haven't thought about this game up until right now for this exact reason. I'm going with LSU. I just don't think LSU's a 2.5 point favorite. Yeah, that's so low. I won't say no, I think they'll cover that. I think it'll be more than 3. But Lane put so much into that Bama game, and to come out, there's going to be a letdown at the start. LSU could jump up on them by 2 or 3 scores early, and if that's the case, that one's over. But I think LSU does win by, like I said, more than 3. Let's see. Oh, Notre Dame and Duke. That not a game typically people are like, yeah, Notre Dame and Duke. That's going to be a very good game. Notre Dame's a 6-point favorite. It's at Duke. This is another one I wouldn't pick. Like if I was a gambler and wanted to pick a game, this is not one I would pick. Duke is at home. Duke has very little home field advantage at their stadium, small stadium. Notre Dame's coming off a loss. So Vegas thinks they're going to play better because they have them winning by 6. I'm thinking I got to go with Duke to cover. I don't know if I'm good enough to pick them to win. But I think they're going to cover that, and I think they could win. They could very easily win that game because they got a good quarterback too. All right, South Carolina, Tennessee. Man, this is one I've went back and forth on too, because you got South Carolina, who just curb stomped Tennessee last year at home. This year they play them on the road. Tennessee has not forgot that game from last year. I'm sure they've had this one circled. They are a 12-point favorite though, which is pretty high considering how bad Tennessee has looked. For that reason, I'm going to pick South Carolina to cover. And it wouldn't blow my mind if South Carolina won this game, because they're playing better than Tennessee right now. I'm not predicting them to win. I'm predicting Tennessee to win. But I don't think Tennessee will cover 12. Could be wrong. Alabama, Mississippi State, late night ESPN game, 8 o'clock. Those are always great. Get done about 1 o'clock Eastern time. Bama going to State as a 14.5 point favorite. I think Bama, God, that line's about right. I think that's about what Bama wins by, is about 14. Mississippi State won't score a lot, but I don't think Bama does either. I think it's going to be something like 24-10, maybe. Well, that was the Ole Miss score. Well, Mississippi State's offense is not that good. I don't see them scoring a lot more than Ole Miss. It would be nice if I had somebody in here chatting with me, talk about this. I could be talked out of this, believe it or not. Okay. So I'm going to say I won't pick the line in that one, because I think Bama's going to win by 14 and then line's 14.5. That's too close. I would never gamble on something I thought would be that close. But yeah, I'll take Bama to win by about 14. And then that's really all of substance for this coming week. As far as ranked teams go, and I really don't have time to get into the non-ranked teams right now. But if you guys join up, if there's ever any games that you guys want me to look at and take an in-depth look at, I can break down games from top to bottom and do a 20 to 30 minute breakdown on it, on everything, especially SEC. That's my jam. Yeah. But yeah, so I appreciate you coming. If you were here for the live stream, I appreciate it. And if not, if you're catching it on the backside, I appreciate you catching it there. Any way you can catch my show, come catch it. I'll see you guys next time.